One Sunday morning, 9-year-old Joshua decided to skip church and go for a walk. His mother had frequently told him that if he skipped church, he would miss a chance to see Jesus. But Joshua had been going to church his whole life and had never seen Jesus there before, so he didn't think he'd be missing much. Besides, his church was an old, small, run-down building, just a little too confining for his desire to run and play. Joshua's walk took him across the train tracks in town for the very first time in his life. He noticed that the houses on the other side of the tracks were much bigger and much nicer than any in the poor neighbourhood where he lived. A few blocks later, Joshua found himself in front of the biggest, most beautiful church he had ever seen. The steeple alone seemed as tall as a mountain. As he got closer, the big church bells stopped ringing as the last people filed in from the car park. They all had nice cars and wore nice clothes. He didn't see any people from his side of town going to this church. This must be the church where Jesus goes, Joshua told himself. It's so big and nice. As he walked closer, he could hear the music coming from the inside. He remembered hearing his mother talk about how angels sing to Jesus in heaven. "Wow," said Joshua as he listened to the choir. "I bet those are angels singing to Jesus." He walked up the steps, through the big front doors and into the spacious lobby. He continued through another set of doors and entered the sanctuary. It was the biggest room he had ever seen. "This must be where Jesus is," Joshua whispered to himself. He noticed an empty seat a few rows from the back, so he sat down to scan the crowd so he could find Jesus. The choir stopped singing, and a large man in a black suit tapped Joshua on the shoulder. The man leaned down and asked Joshua if he could speak to him outside. In the lobby, the man asked, "Son, where do you live?" Joshua answered, "Well, if you go down the hill, take a left at the corner, cross the train tracks and head down that street for a few more blocks, that's where I live." "And where are your parents?" the man asked. "They're probably at church right now," Joshua replied. "Well, son, don't you think it would be better for you to go to your parents' church today?" "But I saw this church and I knew Jesus was here," Joshua said, "so I came to see him." "Well, son, I think it would be best if you were to run along home and go see Jesus in your own church, in your own neighbourhood," the man said. "You really can't stay here." Realising what the man was trying to do, Joshua got upset. "You just don't want me to see Jesus!" he yelled as he turned and ran out the big doors leading to the street. Sobbing as he returned home, Joshua shouted, "God, it isn't fair! All I wanted to do was see Jesus, and they wouldn't let me in!" Joshua shuffled along, staring at the pavement through his tears. Suddenly he heard footsteps behind him and felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around, wiped his eyes, and stared in amazement. It was Jesus! The Lord smiled at Joshua, gave him a big hug and said, "Don't be too upset, my son. They wouldn't let me in there either."